Hello guys, how's it going? This is Splicer here. Now I've just put together 5 top tips for complete beginners that are just starting out on Rainbow Six Siege. Now when you first come to the game, obviously it's quite confusing, it's very tactical, there's loads of different operators do lots of different things. You've got 2 massive aspects to the game, which is obviously attacking and defending, and it can just be a bit overwhelming. So I've just put together these 5 different tips just to sort of point you in the right direction on some of the things, how to use drones for example, and how to be a bit more of an asset to your team, especially with defense. So I'll just take you through those now. For the guys that are sort of seasoned players or to sort of understand the game, these tips aren't really going to be for you. So it's for complete beginners, so let's take you through tip number 1. So this is going to be based on drones. So when you start on your attack phase, everybody starts with a drone. You then go into the area where the hostage or the bomb site is, and you have to identify where that is and where the enemy players are going to be. Now, one thing you need to understand very, very early on is that your drone can give you so much more than simply identifying the enemy and then getting shot and you lose that drone. So what you would need to be aiming to do is to obviously identify where they are, or wait for your teammates to identify them, and then position your drone in such a place where you can either have eyes on where the enemy is, or sort of a specific alleyway or hallway that they're going to be, or an area that you know you're then going to move into, so you can just jump straight back into that drone, and yeah, you can have eyes on that corridor so you know where the enemy are or aren't, to give you that little bit of a tactical advantage. Another thing would be to put your drone in a position where it can't be seen. So obviously you've got the ability to make the drone jump. If you point the drone or the camera up to the sky and push the jump button, it will jump higher than if you just push it and you're on the ground. So jump into a bookcase, jump into sort of hidden area and put it into a little box or whatever, just so you've got eyes on and so the enemy can't really see you. Right, moving on to tip number 2 then. So any operator that you pick will have the ability to reinforce walls. So that's when you've got a defensive position and you see the guys putting on those big metal sheets over the walls that you can shoot through to stop them being penetrated as easily. So everybody's got that ability to do that, and it says it in the bottom left hand corner how many of those walls that you have. My recommendation would be to use them to the maximum ability you can, however use them tactically so you're either defending the objective or you can use them in such a way to sort of funnel the enemy into a position where you want them to be. So think tactically about it. I've seen it so many times already where people just close themselves in to where the objective is. They just put a box around the objective, the entire team stays inside that box. So the attacking team knows exactly where they all are. And it's so easy to then just put in so many angles and just take everybody out all at once. So you want to sort of refrain from creating that box around it. Obviously put up the walls to protect the objective, but you can also use them to, like I say, sort of channel the enemy into a certain position or block off certain areas where you don't want them to be, and use them a bit more tactically. So yeah, but make sure you use them, because a lot of people don't really use them so much. Right, so moving on to number 3 then, and this comes down to the amount of operators that you have to use. So you're going to have favourites that you're going to use, but what I would recommend, and the tip would be, is don't always stick to the same operator. Obviously I know that sounds quite simple, but each of them provide different things to different maps and to different objectives. So you may have an operator that you like the most and you keep on using them, but it's just not advisable for that map, because let's say you're using Glaz, which is the guy that has the long range rifle. If you're in a really confined area, he's not the best operator to have. Even though he's your favourite, you're not going to get the best out of him. So just play through a lot of the operators, find out what's best for you in certain environments and certain game modes, and then it will broaden your gameplay so you don't just stick to one guy you're familiar with when you'll have several guys that you're familiar with for specific reasons. So let's move on to number 4 then. Now this is not necessarily complete beginners that I see doing this. I see a lot of guys doing this whilst I'm playing on Rainbow Six Siege. And it's when you break through barriers, a lot of the guys will break through the barrier and literally stand directly behind it. And obviously you don't want to be doing that, because if you're on the other side of that barrier, and let's say you're defending the room, you see the barrier come through, the first thing you're going to do is look at that barrier or shoot through the barrier, and if you're stood directly behind it, you're obviously just always going to get hit. And I see that time and time again. or if you're early on in a round, you just assume that the enemy isn't in that room, and you go bursting straight through and they'll hit you straight away. So always tactically, if you're going to hit one, sort of hit it, move away to the corner, use the corners for defense, and then look through the hole that you've made to see if there's any enemy in there. Obviously, if there is an enemy in there and you don't see them, they're going to get you because they know where you're coming from. But you could sort of hit one window, move across to the next, and then break through that one, and it will sort of give that element of surprise and increase the tactics that you have. So the biggest point is don't just stand directly behind a barrier when you're hitting through it, shooting through it, putting a blast charge behind it, whatever. Sort of hit it, move out of the way, give it a few seconds, or edge around the corner. Just don't stand directly behind it. I know it sounds extremely simple, but I see it all the time, and it's always the way that most of the guys in the team go down. Now that sort of leads me on to the final tip, which is tip 5, and that is that peeking is your friend in this game. So if I'm talking about PS4 specifically, when you're aiming down the sights, if you click the left stick or the right stick, it will turn the character into a lean on the left or the right hand side. And it's a massive deal. So like I just said before about breaking through barriers, if you lean around the corner, it puts less of your operator out in the open to be shot, and equally you can see a lot more to the side rather than if you had to put your whole character in the way to see that amount. Now, it all really comes down to taking your enemy by surprise, or if you've come into contact with them, it's you seeing them first so you can get that first round down. So obviously if you're peeking round the corner, you're going to see that enemy first if they're literally stood upright and just standing straight, because you're going to see their shoulders and their left hand or right hand side of their bodies, where you're going to be leaning with your weapon, so as soon as they see your head and you, your weapon's already pointed at them and it's too late. It's a little bit of a weird feeling at first when you're aiming and you're sort of clicking left and right to sort of move your character about, but definitely get used to doing it, because it's something that's going to come naturally to you when you start getting used to the game a bit more, and it's something that will improve your gameplay and make sure that you get those first shots down on the enemy before they hit you by shooting your shoulder or your legs or whatever's popped out. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So it's 5 tips. Obviously they are quite simple and very simplified, but for you guys that are just starting out, it's good to know, because I didn't know these things when I started, and I just sort of learned them by watching, and you don't want to be that guy that is sort of being a detriment to your team and your team don't really want you there. Plus you want to be a little bit more enjoyable, where if you start winning rounds and you start taking out enemies, it makes it a lot more enjoyable for you and makes you want to come back and play it more, which is what we all want really. So I'm going to be bringing out more Rainbow Six Siege videos, and obviously more helps and tips and sort of things to assist you in making yourselves a better player. So if you want to see those videos, or if you like this one, obviously subscribe to my channel, drop this video a like if you can. And thanks very much for watching. I hope you guys get better on with the game, and I'll see you guys in the next one.